Welcome, everyone. My name is Mary Beth Hodson, and I'm the Director of Boarding School Education and a Senior Partner at Arch Education in Hong Kong. I'd like to introduce today Miss Amy Jolly, the Head of School for Applewild School in Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here and to talk a little bit about Applewild School.
Yeah, we're excited to be able to introduce Applewild to our families. I'd like to start off by asking you to introduce yourself a little bit, your experiences, and then tell us a little bit about Applewild.
Sure. I've served independent schools for about a little over 20 years now. I had an earlier career in management information consulting and got to education. It's in my blood. I come from a long line of educators, so I couldn't resist the pull of independent school life. Applewild School here in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, has been here since 1957. We're located on a pristine piece of land set sort of above the town common. And, the boring statistics about us are, we have 26 acres and 14 buildings and a beautiful expanse that backs up against, several hundred acres of conservation land that our students use. What I would say about Applewild School is that we have a preschool through ninth grade program. So we intentionally focus on, and this is in our mission, in fact, that we focus on those years that really matter. When a student really figures out who they are as a student, develops those foundational skills that takes them the rest of their life, and also prepares them really well for a secondary school experience. We end in ninth grade, which I know sounds can be a little strange for some people to hear, but we do that very, very intentionally. So our students can graduate after eighth grade or after ninth grade, depending on what's appropriate for that student. And we actually offer a very innovative curriculum in our eighth and ninth grade. And I'll let Dr. Packard speak to that further. We have had international students in our midst for a long, long time. And we opened a beautiful new dormitory about a year ago. It's right on our campus here. And approximately a quarter of our students are residential. So we will board students in grades 5 through 9. They come from a wide range of locations, of course, from here domestically, but from really all around the world. And we've got a wonderful residential life team that I'm sure that Vinny Giambracco is going to speak to about a little bit later as well.
So thank you for sharing that information. How about just like some general idea or some comments on either special programs or what kinds of students do best at Applewild?
I think the kind of students that will do best for a residential experience are students who are perhaps a little intrepid, who are willing to take an intellectual risk, who have a healthy dose of courage. In fact, that's one of the things that I admire most about our residential students is the example they set to our day students about courage, living away from home. And our day students really have enjoyed getting to know them and embracing them as part of the community. And because of just our size and everything, those connections between day students and boarding students just really happen quite naturally.
If you're looking ahead, I guess, what do you see as a future for Applewild? Any education trends that you might be looking towards? Where do you see Applewild moving in the direction, and maybe particularly, in the residential area?
If you consider what we are all living through right now with the pandemic, never has there been a time of more volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We don't know what's going to happen, right? You pair that pandemic experience with what is happening with the rapid increases in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, climate change. All of these things lead to exponential growth in technology. And as educators here at Applewild, we really think a lot about that. And we look at what the World Economic Forum is predicting for skills for the future of work. You could think, it's middle school. Why are you worried about that? But the reality is some of these skills are, if you don't teach them now, if they don't learn those critical thinking and other skills such as how to lead with influence, not formal leadership. In fact, we have a club program that is it's entirely designed to teach children to lead through influence, which is different than saying, I want to be the president, so I want to be in charge, right? It's about how do you use your expertise and your charisma and your personal skills to move a project forward or to move a club forward. Those are the kinds of skills that the World Economic Forum says that successful people will need in the future. So we are thinking a lot about that, embracing those changes in real time here at the school. This summer, we've renovated one of our 2 libraries to be a space that's more supportive of integrated learning. So all the furniture moves so that a teacher can come in and do a large project with the class. And it's just a wonderful space to support learning. We also have this enormous campus here that our teachers, it's really not unusual to see them out in the field working with students outside or putting them in the van and going to the community, going to see a robotics firm or going to see the mayor downtown to talk about, the population trends. So we want to be very organic and very authentic in the work that we're doing with kids so that they see themselves as their protagonists in their own education. Because if I can get them to see themselves as that protagonist, as I control my own education, I am learning to broaden myself and to prove myself that when they go to secondary school, this is why our kids do so well. It's they're ready to lead when they get to campus. They are curious about things on their own, not because they're worried about the grade they're getting. Of course, they want to get good grades, but their primary motivation is, I'm interested in this because there are real reasons for me to be interested in it. So, I really believe that this is where the die is cast for a child, for education, or where the twig is bent, depending on how you want to refer to it. But really, the opportunity is here. And we make sure that we take advantage of that and prepare them for what the trends that are just very clearly evident.
Yeah, I love that empowerment that you're providing for the students. On a little more practical level, you have a new director of admission, which we're excited to be working with. Can you talk a little bit just about logistics? Are you accepting visitors, SSDT optional, any changes in your admission policies?
Well, goodness, the variants are creating a little more challenge for us than we expected. But we're rolling with it. We are allowing visitors. We have so much outdoor space that actually we feel that we can manage it quite safely. We are requiring visitors to wear masks, but I think that's pretty standard everywhere right now. Depending on how this variant goes, we may make some modifications to that. But right now, we're welcoming visitors. We are going to keep the SSAT as optional next year. For international students, where English is not their first language, we do want some sort of instrument. So the TOEFL Junior. And if there's a challenge with that, we have another instrument we could possibly use. It's just really, our view on admission is about evaluating each child individually as a person. So we gather artifacts into an admission file that helps us see who this child is and helps us understand the educational objectives the family might have. And we use that. So we're not as rigid as some.
That's, I'm sure, comforting. Maybe while we're on this topic, maybe talk a little bit about the advisor role as we're talking about parents and school. I think it's important that parents understand, what that role is.
Sure. We have small advisory groups, maybe 6 to 8 students. And we have a teacher who teaches those students who owns those students for the year. And it's someone who, as a parent, you can pick up the phone and call anyone here at any time or send us an email and we will get back to you. But often a good starting point is the advisor, where, you can send an email saying, I'm a little concerned about this, or I'm wondering about that. And the advisor will get back to you and help you out. The advisor is going to watch children, not only in the class, but is going to sort of keep an eye on them when they're, on the sports field or at recess. They're going to say like, oh, is this student talking to other students? Who are they talking to? How can I help them make some more connections? Middle school it's an awkward age. If it was easy, people wouldn't cringe when we said the words middle school. So we work very hard to help them make the connections they have with other students and with teachers, and the advisor plays a really key role in that. One of the things about Applewild that we understand is that children are really not available to learn to their fullest potential until they feel emotional safety. So we work hard to establish those connections with students so that they're willing to tell you things and tell you how they're feeling about it. And often that's when we can coax them in a different direction. And, one of our traditions is this Eleanor Crow speaking contest that we do, and every eighth grader does it. And they have to write an original speech that's, I think 3 to 5 minutes long. And they do it without a microphone, and they do it without note cards. And we get every one of our students ready to do that, even when they're shy, because they feel that connectedness and that safety within the community. So even if you mess up a little bit, it's okay. Like, we're going to help you get through it. And I think that's a real, I don't know. I know that sounds very soft, Mary Beth, but that's how we inspire excellence with our students, is we make that emotional connection with them first. And then we teach them the metacognitive skills to plan, to monitor, and to reflect on their own work, so that as they are going through difficult times, they can take a step back and say, oh, this is maybe why this happened. This is why I got here. And this is how I move forward. Because that's, learning to have courage and perseverance isn't in the absence of struggle. It's how you deal with those struggles. And we teach children how to do that in a way that's developmentally appropriate.
Yeah, you're right on target with, adolescents and what they need at this time. And I love the fact that you're encouraging this risk taking in a really safe place, which is super important, super important. Well, I've so enjoyed our conversation as always. So I'd now like to introduce Dr. Amanda Packard, who is the Dean of Academics and Strategic Planning for Applewild. So welcome, Amanda. So nice to be able to talk to you. You are so welcome. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to talk about academics and maybe a little strategic planning. So I'd like to just start off by, if you could give us a sense of some of the, academic programs at Applewild, whether there's some, special areas of interest for certain kids, or just a general overview of what you are thinking about when you're looking at curriculum and
Sure.
how students can access that curriculum.
Great. Well, I can sort of start backwards, and I'll start with our 8th and 9th grade loop. So we have both 8th and 9th graders integrated into classes, and we have a very specialized Wednesday when we do field work. So field work is an opportunity for our students to get out into the world and practice what they've been learning. So students in 8th and 9th grade might take a math lab course, and they take a writing lab course. And in the writing lab course, they might be learning how to write a business proposal or learning how to write interview questions. And in the math lab course, they might be learning about statistics and about business planning. And then on those Wednesdays in the afternoon, we get to go out into the real world. We get to interview entrepreneurs and talk about their businesses and connect back to what they're learning in the classroom with what's going on around them. So for us, that's really a signature program that we're really very excited about. And students really like getting out of the classroom and applying the knowledge that they've learned. And it's a great opportunity, too, for students to do something a little different than every other school. And it gives them talking points when they're applying out to secondary schools as well, about what they're doing and how they're applying it to real world situations.
It's like having a mini internship, right, when you're in middle school. It's fantastic.
It is. It's fabulous, and we ran it even with COVID last year. So they were out and about, and we were on the ground running about, going to different museums, talking with different experts in the field, talking to a nursing home that's nearby about formative moments of when you think you best formed your identity, favorite college experiences, to talk to the businessman about how they put together their model to get money in. So how do you actually sell your entrepreneurial plan? We ran a Shark Tank event where investors actually got to come in and look at what the kids were growing. One of our students made a better beach chair, right? How can you get a beach chair to the beach? So they made a rolling beach chair. One figured out a way to ride their bicycle in the rain, and had a whole umbrella situation over their bicycle so that they could get to work in the rain. So really innovative ideas and a lot of creativity, and a lot of design elements. So our Wednesdays are also spent doing design, and iterations, and really thinking about what our use for an object is, and how we can help humanity with the use of an object. So it's a really fun course.
Yeah, I'd love to do that course. That sounds fantastic. And I'm also under the impression that you also do provide some support for kids that have some mild to moderate learning difference. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I can definitely talk about our learning support program. So we have a myriad of ways that learning support assists children. And part of their job is to assist students who need a little bit more support, a little bit more practice with a certain skill. And there are other areas to help students with enrichment who are gifted and who need a little bit more support to push them a little farther and to go beyond the scope of what they're learning in the classroom. We also offer, so those are sort of those one-to-one meetings, the learning support 2T sessions that you might have, but we also offer small group sessions as well in a directed studies class. And this will be for students who will meet a few times a week, for students who maybe are a little less organized, maybe they have trouble finding their homework, maybe they just need to plan out their projects a little bit better. And it's really giving them their study habits that they need to be successful at the secondary school level at competitive schools. So it's really a great course to just support students with their learning as well.
Can you talk a little bit about your ESL program?
Sure. So at Applewild, we have an ELL program, which is for English language learners. The beauty of our program is just how integrated it into the school day. You might go into the humanities classroom, or you might go into the ELL classroom, or you might go into the science classroom. It's all in the same hallway. It's just another academic class for us. So it's not a separate building. It's not a separate, it's nothing that divides students who are coming in as English language learners. So the program itself, students can be in an ELL program that meets once a day. They might be in an ELL program that meets twice a day, depending on the level and their needs. So we do have different levels of ELL. Some students just might need a little support with their writing. So it really sort of depends upon the need of the student. Because we are an intentionally small school, we can really meet the needs of the individualized student, which is a benefit. And then our ELL students go off and do all the other classes with the students. So they will be in art class and music class and drama class and woodshop class, and they'll do some public speaking. So it really is a very integrated program into our whole school.
Thank you. Dr. Packard, it seems like you are also heavily involved in the secondary placement process. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how that works at Applewild.
Sure. Some students come into our school and they know where they want to go to their secondary school. They've probably mapped it out since they were at 10. So we have those types of students who are coming in and they'll arrive and they'll say, this is where I want to go to secondary school. And then we'll have students who come in and who are really just in the exploratory phase of, I don't really know, I thought Applewild would be with me forever. I'm not sure that I even want to leave, right? So we have those two types of students that come in, and we have an advisory program. So the head of school, Amy Jolly, Vinny Giambracco, our dean of students, and myself do the secondary school placement process. So you'll have one of these three senior administrators being your advisor. And we meet with the students and we talk to them. So our job really is to expand their horizon of the student who only wants to go to that one school and show them that there are many possibilities. And for the student who's really unsettled, it's to narrow that down, this broad range of secondary schools, and really find a few schools that seem like an excellent fit. And we do that through meetings with them weekly, through working on them on their writing, making sure that their essays are done, making sure that they're meeting their application deadlines, and making sure that they get opportunities for our boarding students to actually go out and meet and see these secondary schools, which is hugely important in this process.
Anything else like parting that you might want to share with our families, even maybe looking at academics, right, and the fact that many families have had many kids have had a very disrupted academic path for the last year and a half, and particularly for the Hong Kong kids, because we're looking at the political unrest extending the period for our kids as far as a bit of interrupted learning. So anything academically that you're looking for that gives it maybe a little more confidence to the kids' academic progress during this interrupted time?
Well, I think that kids are resilient. And that's really what it comes down to. And that resiliency really needs to be brought out by the faculty. And we have a great faculty at Applewild who really looks at a student and figures out what they need for their growth. You're right. There's been slippage for students all across the world right now because of COVID, and we have to recognize that. And we can't just be running full steam ahead without also trying to give students what they need for their individualized case. Some students have been unbelievably successful doing math on Zoom on the home front, and some students haven't been, right? So first thing you need to do is evaluate students. And that's really what we do when a student comes into Applewild. We make sure that the program we have set up for them is really what they need. A student can come in and just find out that they've been doing extra math work during COVID because they were bored, and now actually have excelled, and they're beyond where they would have been on paper in just their regular classes had they been attending. And there are some students who've decided to read books and have really enjoyed that and decide not to do any math homework online. And so even though they had math a year ago, maybe they're a little fuzzy and need to get some number sense back again. So I think part of that is just that one-on-one relationship. We have the flexibility, which is great in the schedule, to meet with students and make sure that they are getting the program that they need. Larger schools sometimes don't have that advantage that we have to be able to really make sure that we're hitting all the boxes and making sure they're prepared for what they want to do next in life.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I think a lot of parents are concerned about their academic record, and even there are some trimesters or periods of some of the transcripts from the Hong Kong kids where they didn't actually get grades, right? And so, trying to give schools confidence about, academic fit can be challenging right now.
Yeah, and I think because we're a junior boarding school, right, we're very sort of allowing and looking at transcripts and understanding that there might be a blank hole. And can we fill that in a different way by either doing our own in-house assessment or by getting a letter of recommendation from someone who's been tutoring the child? But the other end of that is secondary schools, when they come out of Applewild, are also pretty understanding. So if they're coming into us and they've had a hole and we're catching them up at this point, I think that there's a lot more forgiveness right now in the educational sphere than there's ever been before, right? We all know that COVID has hit all of us the same, and we're all making sure that we're doing the right thing by students. And I think that's the beauty of Applewild, is we really put the students first, academically, social, emotionally, and making sure that they are, enjoying their life at the same time as learning.
Well, that's great news for our kids. So thank you. Really have enjoyed learning about the academic life at Applewild, and look forward to introducing more students and working with you guys. Next, I'd like for us to be able to learn a little bit about the residential life, and we'll be inviting Vinny Giambrocco, who is the Director of Student Life, residential life at Applewild. So thank you so much, Dr. Packard, for your time.
Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce Dean of Student Life, Residential Life at Applewild, Mr. Vinny Giambrocco. Welcome, Vinny.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we are delighted that you've come to join us, and we've heard from your head of school, we've heard from your dean of academics. So now we're here to talk about residential life at Applewild, and we've got some questions for you, and interested to hear your stories and what the kids are up to residentially and extracurricularly at Applewild. So maybe describe your boarding program to us, and also maybe a sense of what how the dorm is set up and what dorm life is like.
Sure. So first, it's a small boarding program, which is wonderful for us. It gives us an opportunity to get to know our students really well. We spend so much wonderful time together. Our program next year, we're going to have 14 students in the dormitory, and our floors are separated. We have our boys on the first floor, our girls on the second floor, and faculty members living on both of those floors as well. Beyond that, we're really excited about growing our program, moving into and utilizing some of the wonderful spaces, not just on our campus, but in the world around us. As we know full well, last year, things were constricted. We didn't have as much of an opportunity to explore and get to know the landscapes around us. So for us, we're very lucky. Our school is located on a lovely 60-acre parcel, and it abuts this incredible Audubon reserve. It's about 600 additional acres. So it's fantastic from the dormitory. We can see, flora, fauna, deer sprinting around through the playing fields just behind the dormitory itself. It's special. Beyond that, the sunsets here are incredible. I look forward to sharing those with our students as soon as they get back. Beyond that, we've got some really exciting activities scheduled and planned for our students. And we look forward to exploring some of the cities around us, cities like Boston, Worcester even, and also getting up into the mountains of New Hampshire and visiting the ocean, which isn't too far away either, about an hour. So we're really wonderfully located.
That's fantastic. I would agree. Like right spot in the middle of some really great stuff. And, Sunday afternoons, going for a walk in the fields and seeing all that stuff is fantastic. And I know during COVID, just from learning from your colleagues, that you guys were very busy residentially and taking care of the kids. So, I think that's certainly something that will give gives the parents a lot of confidence. Some parents might have some concerns about sending their younger children off to boarding school. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the communication piece with parents and how, in your role of residential life, you communicate with parents and let them know what's happening, on the ground with their kids in the dorms? I think my experience in boarding school, the homesickness and all that stuff comes out in the dorm, right? It's that place where they can decompress a little bit, and that's where it usually surfaces. So you're like ground zero when it comes to that, right? So maybe just talk a little bit about, how you handle those situations and how in your role you communicate with parents and let them know what's happening with their kids.
Sure. So that's another great question. And I think, specific to this age group, homesickness is absolutely something that crops up, and it's not anything that we want to, be surprised by. It's something that we expect and understand. So for us, establishing positive communication patterns is crucial. And there are a number of venues through which we communicate with parents. I think there are a series of levels to that communication. So we have everything from our folks with external affairs who are sending out weekly videos highlighting some of the fun that we have as a dorm on the weekends with photos and videos and little write-ups of the activities. Beyond that, we also have our social media platforms so they can, keep up with what's going on, comment, ask questions, and it's pretty interactive. Our external affairs staff is wonderful. Additionally, we've got a number of folks and eyes on our students here. Not only do we have our residential staff, but each of our students who's part of our boarding program is assigned an advisor here on campus. They meet with their advisor a couple of times each week. And those meetings range from sort of nuts and bolts, making sure the trains are on time, check-ins, to addressing some of those deeper concerns that a parent may have or a student may have, whether they're starting at a new school or rejoining in-person learning after a year away. So we're addressing things like anxiety, pointing also to some of our core values, touching on things like respect and fairness and responsibility. So we're engaging in some of these conversations as well. The advisor becomes this key centralized communication point between teachers, dorm staff, coaches, parents, consultants, and they fill this wonderful role of being someone that our students have the ability to lean on. They provide that ear and that shoulder. Beyond that, we've also got, and we've just recently partnered with a company called Reach, and Reach is a tremendous group. They provide a software so that our parents have the ability, should they need to check in with us, and we have sort of minute-to-minute knowledge of where their student is, what they're doing either on campus or off campus, other students they might be with. In addition, it gives those parents the opportunity to sign off if a student wants to go and visit a friend, and it keeps them in the loop so they know what's going on, with their child, not just during the week, but on the weekends as well.
That's a great additional benefit. You can kind of, through technology, kind of have some eyes on what's happening with your child. That's great. It's been so delightful, Mr. Gianbracco, to speak with you and to learn more about Applewild's residential program. We hope that we'll be able to work together in the future and have some students be able to experience that firsthand.
Absolutely. It was certainly a blast for me. I love being able to talk Applewild and residential communities, and this is a wonderful chance to do so. So thank you for taking some time to chat with me. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Have a great day.
You as well. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.